We all know about the theft of Scotland's vast oil and gas wealth, which is still ongoing, and with much of Scotland's gas production also used to support England's electricity generation. Scotland's vast renewable energy production is next. Last time I looked, Scotland's renewable energy production is calculated to have a retail value of at least £60 billion per annum by 2030, based on UK prices of around 30 pence per kilowatt hour. And given expected additional production, we might safely assume this resource will have a retail value exceeding £100 billion per annum shortly thereafter. That's £100 billion plus every year for at least the next 30 years, and probably a lot more. Us Scots won't see any benefit from any of this, of course, as we would have with a state-owned energy company and far better management of our resources. Here, high electricity prices are the norm, and that will not change under Westminster rule, which in turn also negatively influences the future social and economic prospects of Scots and Scotland. As we now know, Scotland's vast renewable energy capacity is, just like our oil and gas, geared mostly to serving the needs of England's far greater population. Possibly as much as 90% of this production is planned to supply the mother country via cables laid and in the process of being laid. Not that Scots will see much of any financial benefit from this business, as with oil and gas. In post-colonial theory, this is what is known as economic plunder, where a native population is put out of the game, made into mere bystanders. But the effects from exploitation of a colonised people's resources does not end there. Whilst resources are extracted from a colony on the cheap, supplies to the colonised country are priced high. This means a colonised people get hit twice: the theft of the resources and being made to suffer high prices for goods and services supplied to them by the mother country and the corporations who control what is always a rigged market. In order to illustrate and prove this reality, all we have to do is compare colonial Scotland's domestic electricity prices with other oil and gas-rich independent countries, most of which, like Scotland, also now have a strong focus on developing renewable energy capacity. The data tells us that as part of the UK, Scotland's electricity price of 44 cents per kilowatt hour is far higher than all of the world's major oil-producing nations. For example, the price of electricity in the USA, as with motor fuels there, is almost a third of that in Scotland, just 17 cents per kilowatt hour. And in nearby Norway, the price of electricity is even lower, just 11 cents per kilowatt hour. Yes, electricity in Norway is only 1/4 the price of electricity in Scotland. With electricity prices so low, it is therefore no wonder that Norway has now built over 100 electric ferries, and 90% of all new car registrations there are now electric, compared with only around 10% in Scotland and the UK. And let's not even talk about where our UK colonial administrators are with ferries and still focused on costlier LNG and diesel solutions. In several other oil-rich nations, electricity prices are only about 1/10 of that in Scotland, with some very close to zero. So Scotland is very definitely the odd one out amongst the world's major oil and gas producing nations, suffering from extremely high electricity prices imposed via Westminster rule. Aside from Scotland's people being continually pushed by Westminster into unnecessary fuel poverty and a cost of living crisis in our resource-rich nation, high electricity prices also means our economy and industries have been made internationally uncompetitive. Very high electricity prices are clearly one of the main reasons our nation is still lacking in development and economic growth. Yet this critical information seems to have passed by our colonial administrators, as well as its various national economic and business bodies, such as the Committee of Economic Advisers, Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, the Scottish Council on Development and Industry, and Chambers of Commerce, and even our 19 universities. Don't any of these experts ever analyse or understand Scotland's colonial reality, which is easily demonstrated by an analysis such as this of electricity prices? Imagine with Scotland's recent industrial skills and capacity in steel, engineering, mining and shipbuilding, if we had had the advantage of some of the lowest energy prices in the world through our abundance of oil and gas and now renewables. Scotland would no doubt have been competitive enough to build all our own wind turbines, rather than having to depend on imports now entering through Westminster's free ports, Contric, which also allows foreign firms to avoid paying millions in import duties to us. The costs, including the opportunity costs of colonialism, or what we otherwise call the UK Union, the latter simply a colonial hoax, are therefore enormous. Billions of pounds are and will continue to be siphoned out of Scotland every year, causing millions of our people to be left struggling and marginalised, with our economy and society trashed and continually underdeveloped. That is the only sure future for Scots remaining under Westminster rule. So us Scots definitely need to get a very firm grip of our sovereignty again, and therefore control over our future, fast, if we are to have a future worth talking about.